I started investing 4 years ago with basically the bare minimum level of knowledge. And when I say bare minimum, I mean I genuinely could not have told you what an ETF even stood for back in the day. I just knew that letting my money sit in a checking account earning nothing didn't sit right with me and it kept me up at night. And I knew that I wanted a different financial future than the average person. I knew that I was going to have to start by doing something different, even if I felt unqualified to do so at the time. Fast forward to today, and that small, imperfect start that I had for my investing journey has turned into an investment portfolio of just about $284,000 at age 27, which feels surreal to say out loud because 4 years is not a long time in the grand scheme of investing. But it is long enough to completely change your financial trajectory if you're consistent enough. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how much I've made in each of my accounts, and I'm not just going to show you the highlight reel either. I'm going to talk about what went well and what also didn't go well. I want this to be the kind of transparent investing breakdown that I wish I had stumbled across when I was 21 or 22 years old. Because back then it felt like everyone online was either pretending to be a millionaire or just trying to sell you some bullshit. And very few people were just showing the truth about the investing journey, about doing it the hard way. So I'm going to give you the full breakdown across all of 5 of my investment accounts, how much I've contributed, how much I've made, and what I'd do differently if I were starting over today. And as you're watching, I genuinely want to hear where you're at too, whether you're just getting started investing or you're 10 years deep and you're that unk who's sitting on millions of dollars. Drop your investment knowledge down below in the comments because those conversations help more people than you think. All right, let's get into it. And also, feel free to roast me in the comments or give me feedback on my portfolio because I'm always curious how you guys shape your portfolio and I'm willing to learn and improve. At the end of the day, I'm just a dumb engineer who loves talking about personal finance. So, the first account I want to walk you through is my 401k because this is really where everything started for me. And to keep it simple, I'm going to round everything down to the nearest $1,000 when I'm talking about my numbers. So far, I've contributed about $134,000 into this account, and it has grown to the point where I've made roughly $53,000 in gains. Nothing crazy, just steady market returns doing what they've historically done. Also, when I first started, I genuinely had no idea what I was doing. I was a bot. The thing that bailed me out the most was, and one of the biggest advantages I had early on, was solid mentors who at work told me very directly to max out my 401k every single year, no matter what. And that one piece of simple advice accelerated my wealth building journey more than I ever could have imagined. At the time, I didn't fully appreciate how powerful that piece of advice and habit of investing would become. But looking back, that consistent max contribution to my 401k every year is the foundation of the entire portfolio you're seeing today. And I did a 50-50 split between a traditional 401k and a Roth 401k for my contributions. Right now, my allocation inside the 401k is about 60% in an S&P 500 index fund and 40% in a growth focused fund, which I'll admit is a bit more aggressive than what some people would recommend for a retirement account. But I'm still young and I'm leaning into growth because I believe over the next decade, growth ETFs will continue to have outstanding returns. Even with all the talk about potential tech bubble coming soon, I'm not changing that allocation based on headlines or short term volatility. If there is volatility, great, I'll keep buying. If there's pullback, great, I'll keep buying. I want the exposure to that long term potential. And as I get older, this investment strategy, of course, is going to evolve. My plan is to gradually shift towards something like a 75% S&P and a 25% growth. And then as I approach retirement, I'll slowly introduce more stability, whether that's investing in a money market fund or some bond allocation. Because closer to retirement at that stage, my goal is going to shift from wealth accumulation to wealth preservation. But even then, I still don't want to move everything into ultra conservative assets because I still want the portfolio to grow even when I'm withdrawing from it. So the second account I want to talk about is my HSA, and this one has quietly become one of my favorite accounts. So far, I've contributed about $13,000 and it's grown by roughly $3,000. But to be fair, I only started investing in this account in 2023, so we're not looking at a full 4-year track record like the 401k. And with the 401k and with the HSA, I also had employer matches for this. So, yes, most of it was my own contributions, but I was very thankful that my employer had contributions, and I know that is not an opportunity everyone has. So, if your employer does offer contributions, I would highly recommend at least contributing up to the max of their contributions. And I'll say this confidently, the HSA is probably the most underrated investment account in the entire United States. It has a triple tax advantage, meaning you get a tax deduction when you contribute, it grows tax free, and you can withdraw it tax free for qualified medical expenses. There's really nothing else structured like that. That's why I'm always going to be maxing out this account every single year. Inside of my HSA, I keep it pretty straightforward with a mix of DGRO, SCHD, VOO, VGT, and SCHG. And my allocation is roughly 40% broad market, 40% growth, and 20% dividend focused ETFs. This account is still pretty aggressive because I view this as a long term investment account, and I'm not going to pull out this money until I'm 60 years or older. So if I pay for medical expenses, I'm going to pay that out of pocket and let this account compound for me. If you're young and healthy and have access to an HSA, I genuinely think this is something you should open and invest in as early as possible. Because statistically, your largest medical expenses tend to be later in life, and having the tax free pool of money waiting for you is a massive advantage. In my opinion, this is hands down one of the best tax advantage accounts out there, and most people don't even know about this. So, again, if you don't have one of these opened, I would highly recommend it. The third account is my taxable brokerage account, and this one is a bit newer, but it's still really important in the overall picture. So far, I've contributed about $36,000, and it's grown by roughly $8,000. Now, I only opened this account in 2024, so we're working with about 2 years of data here. But even in that short window, you can see how quickly the investment gains start stacking on top of each other once you're consistently investing. My allocation here is pretty evenly split because I wanted this account to be diversified but still growth oriented. Roughly 33% is in VOO for broad S&P 500 exposure. 33% is split between SCHD and DGRO for dividend growth. And the remaining 33% is in XLK and SCHG to lean into tech and higher growth opportunities. It's a balanced but still aggressive mix of ETFs. This is technically my most tax inefficient account since I'm paying taxes on dividends and capital gains all along the way. But it's also the most flexible account I own, and that flexibility matters to me. This is the account I plan to use to bridge the gap before traditional retirement age. And my goal is something along the lines of barista fire around the age of 45, where I can either work part time, continue to build my businesses, or just choose work based on interest instead of a need. And this brokerage account will fund that lifestyle before I can access my retirement accounts. So while I love the flexibility of a taxable brokerage, I always tell people the same thing. Max out your taxed advantaged accounts first if you can. Get your 401k, your HSA, your Roth IRA all handled first. And then use the taxable brokerage account. So getting into that, my fourth account is my Roth IRA. And even though it's one of my smallest accounts right now, it's probably the one I get the most excited about investing for long term. I've contributed about $8,100 so far, and it's grown by roughly $400. But to keep this honest, I've only had this account open for about a year. The Roth IRA is just a classic workhorse account, and it's famous for a reason. You're investing money that has already been taxed, and then from that point forward, the growth is completely tax free. No taxes on dividends, no taxes on capital gains, no taxes when you withdraw it in retirement. And that's powerful. When you really think about what that means over a 30 or 40-year window of compounding, it's hard not to get excited about this account. And inside of this account, I keep it simple and I literally mirror my taxable brokerage account allocation to a T. Same percentages, same funds, 33% in VOO, 33% between SCHD and DGRO, and 33% between XLK and SCHG. For this account, I just don't want to overcomplicate it, and this investment allocation has been working great for me. I genuinely wish I had opened my Roth IRA when I was 18 years old. I think about this sometimes and I realize how much larger this account could already be if I had just started investing earlier, even with small amounts. I literally could have been on year 9 of Roth IRA growth, and that's just crazy to think about. And yeah, part of me kicks myself for that. So if you're young and watching this, please open up a Roth IRA and start contributing, even if it's like $50 or $100 at a time. You cannot rewind the clock and give your 18-year-old self a second chance to invest earlier. If there's one takeaway from this entire breakdown, it's that starting early matters more than anything. And the fifth and final account is my crypto account, and this one by far is the smallest and newest part of my portfolio. I've contributed about $900 and I'm currently down $100. Right now, this account is 100% invested in Bitcoin. I didn't want to spread myself thin across a bunch of random coins that I don't understand, and I just wanted exposure to what I view as the most established crypto out there. My plan is to slowly dollar cost average into Bitcoin over time and enough to give me some diversification outside of the traditional assets. I plan to have about 5% of my net worth into Bitcoin over time. This is a long term play for me, and I plan to always move to a cold wallet and just let it sit there and grow over time. I personally would rather allocate a small percentage to Bitcoin rather than to gold or silver, and that's just my personal preference. Some people feel more comfortable with precious metals, and that's fine, but for me, if I'm going to have an alternative asset, I'd rather it be Bitcoin. And that's really all I have for this video. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions about my portfolio and what your portfolio might look like, and what your portfolio goals are for 2026. If you stayed to the end of this video, I appreciate it, and I'll see you all in the next one.